Welcome back to Gaming Top Down. Today I'm continuing my series where I am looking at every game in my collection letter by letter. Today we're continuing with the letter C, and I'll be breaking them into different categories. So without any further ado, let's hop on in. Okay, the letter C is kind of crazy. I have a lot of games that start with the letter C, so we're going to have to be kind of quick. But we're going to start here with the games I haven't got to play yet, and there's just a few of those. First up is this game from Button Shy Games. It's called Champion Land Track and Field. It came in one of my monthly packages from them, and to be honest, I don't know how to play it yet, so it's just one that hasn't made it to the table. It's a game for 2 players only. And yeah, that is really all I know about it. It does have some cool card art, though, kind of with a Olympics or track and field vibe to it. So I am excited to try that one out, but haven't gotten to it quite yet. Next up is a big Euro game that I am very excited to try called Coimbra. I really like Egert Spiel. They make really nice productions in their games. Another one that I'm excited to try that I just got from them recently is Great Western Trail, and similar idea, very good production. This is a dice kind of a drafting, and I think you place your dice as workers as well. You choose them and slot them into these bases, and then you'll put them on the boards and go up on lots of tracks and maybe get some different people. It's very much kind of a medium heavy Euro, a little bit dry, but I really like dice drafting lately, so I'm very excited to try Coimbra. So that's next up in games I haven't played quite yet. Okay, continuing on is a much lighter game from a designer I generally like, Phil Walker Harding, and this is Cloud City, where you're building up this little city loud box, and you'll be building these bridges from building to building. And I think you get points based on how long the bridges are between the buildings. So in the end, you'll have something kind of stretching and over itself, kind of looping around like this. And you're just trying to get the most points from placing the buildings out with the bridges. So loud box, but that is Cloud City. And last up in for this video, as far as games I haven't played yet, this one is City of Gears. I actually got this one used. I'm very picky with used games, but this shop I found that I really trust. They make sure that no components are missing and that they're in good quality, include lots of pictures, so I took a chance on this one. And I haven't played it yet. I know there's some reviewing sites that have really liked it, but it's kind of a more in-your-face area majority game, and it just hasn't made it to the table yet. You play as these different groups of robots, I believe, and you kind of have your own board here to, kind of grow your troop of machines, and there's some engine building in it where you'll get stronger and better, and then you're trying to control the most and best spaces out here on the board. So excited to try those 4 games out. Next up are the games that I am contemplating purging. First up in that category is Conspiracy. This is a game in the Abyss universe. We talked about Abyss a couple of videos ago. This is a much smaller game, comes in this little tin. And we've played it once, and I thought it was just okay. You're kind of building this upside-down pyramid of leader cars, and the art's really cool, but I thought the gameplay was very simplistic. So it might be time for Conspiracy to go. I do appreciate that it's in a tiny little box, but even a tiny little amount of space like that can be better used by something that I will actually get to the table. So there is Conspiracy. Next up is one I've almost finished, but not quite. This is Chronicles of Crime, the Millennium series. This is the one in the future, the 2400 version. And Chronicles of Crime is a cool idea. You basically play as like a Sherlock Holmes-like character solving crimes. You go to different crime scenes and talk to people, scan and find evidence, and then try to solve the case. And it's app assisted, so you can you can get a much better experience, and I think you might even have to use the app. There's also like some VR goggles that you can slot your phone into if you really want to kind of look around the crime scene. The functionality of the VR portion isn't incredible by any means, but it is fun to hold the phone up at least and kind of look around the crime scene and find things. And I did like the few sessions that I've played of this one, and I do want to finish it, but it's been a while, so I might have to just start it over, which is a little bit of a daunting task. Anyways, that's Chronicles of Crime 2400. Next up is a game that I think I will like a lot more now, and that is The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. I mean, it won this Game of the Year award in 2020. Very uber popular game, but I think that I just hadn't quite had my trick-taking renaissance, I guess, yet. And I will have to thank a different game in this very video for that. And now that I've played that game quite a few times, I think I'll be much more likely to enjoy this one. It's a trick-taking game where you're playing cooperatively with 3 to 5 players, but you can't talk to them about the cards you have. So you have to try to deduce what cards they might have, and you can use some tokens to give your teammates some information, but you're very much limited in what you can what information you can give them. And I think there's like 50 different scenarios or missions that you can go through. Most of them play pretty quickly. You either fail in 5 minutes or you pass the mission in 5 to 10. So nice for little sessions like that. But that's The Crew. I want to try it again. Next up are 3 games that kind of fall in a similar category for me. First, I have Codenames and Codenames Pictures. Uber popular party games. I think they are a lot of fun. Can run a little long sometimes. Kind of can get a little heated as well occasionally. The Pictures version is surprisingly more difficult in my opinion. The pictures are very abstract. Like you can see here, it's a kangaroo mixed with a dinosaur, or a snowman that's a bee getting pollen from a flower. So it's very much more abstract and weird clues are given in Pictures. So I don't know that I like it quite as much. I might not need to keep both of them, but I could maybe even consolidate both games into a single box since they're just kind of baggies of cards anyways. So Codenames and Codenames Pictures there. And then next up is one that I've liked a little bit more just than Codenames, just because it's much lighter and a more comfortable and just an easier going game. And that's Cross Clues. It's also a cooperative word game, and you have to put clues kind of on this grid and guess kind of words in a similar way to something like Codenames, but you're all working together as opposed to in teams. And like I said, it's about 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most. So it's a shorter experience if you just want a word game experience. Smaller box, like the fun magnet clasp on the side. Cross Clues is a good one. This is in my maybe Purge section just because I don't play a ton of party games. And so it kind of has a similar feel to me as Codenames in that fashion. But if I was going to keep one of the two, I think I would keep Cross Clues over Codenames. All right, and then last up is one that I have really loved, but I think that I just have other games that we'll get to in much later videos that I would rather play and have kind of replaced this game for me, and that is Camel Up. Again, talking about Eggert Spiel, I love their games, awesome production. I think Camel Up is a really kind of zany, fun time, betting on these camels that might go forwards or backwards or end up stacked on top of each other. And you can make alliances with other players. It's a good time. The board even has a 3D pop-up palm tree. So yeah, I've never had a bad experience with Camel Up. But I just think it's very, very lucky and swingy. So you really just have to, just kind of play with no intention of really trying to win. Just do your best, throw some wild bids, and bets out there, make some fun alliances, and see what happens. But it is a good time regardless. So that is Camel Up. All right, and now for my favorite games that start with the letter C. There's quite a few of them, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. First up is one that doesn't get talked about very much, and that is Counterfeiters. This is a worker placement game where you are trying to break the law by counterfeiting money, but you play as these funny animals, so it seems less evil. And on your turn, you place one of your animal meeples out, maybe at the supermarket or at one of these other locations, to either get better printing presses to print better money. At some certain points during the game, kind of the crime boss will come around and demand half of your money to keep you safe from the police. So if you haven't sent your money to your offshore account before then you'll lose a lot of your money. I think this is a very good introduction to worker placement games because it plays in like half an hour. And it's very simple. You place one worker out and then do whatever that location says. And this is one of the only games that I like that has paper money. And the paper money has 3 different quality levels as you're printing, like ink and presses get better. And then there's obviously real money that you have to launder it into. And then when you send your money to those offshore accounts, you'll put that paper money in your secret envelope behind your shield, so your opponents don't know how much money you've sent offshore. Really awesome game. Small box, which I really appreciate. Counterfeiters is it's a keeper. Cool artwork as well by Ian O'Toole. That's a good one. Counterfeiters. Next up is a 2-player game that me and my wife play quite a bit. It's called Canopy. Awesome art in this one as well by Vincent Dutray. And yeah, this is a fun 2-player game. I think it does technically have a 4-player mode, but it's primarily a 2-player game where you are drafting cards from this kind of middle drafting section, and then using those cards to either build up trees or place animals in kind of a rainforest tableau in front of you. Not incredibly different from other tableau building card games, but again, small box, fun game, plays in 30 to 45 minutes, really cool art. This was one my wife really likes, so I think that we will keep it for quite a while. Next up is the trick-taking game that got me back into trick-taking games, and that is Cat in the Box. I think this one is such a fun time. The idea here is that all of the cards in the game are suitless or just black cards. And then when you play one of your cards, you get to decide which suit it is, if it's red, blue, yellow, or green, and you place your token in the matching spot. So if I played this 3 here, I could make it the blue 3. But if you don't follow suit, then you have to mark off on your individual board that you no longer have any 3s that you can play, and you get points by clustering your pieces close together, and you also will get points for the tricks that you win if you met your bet for how many tricks you would win. It's a very cool trick-taking game. I've played it quite a few times and it's been a hit with everybody. I really like this one. Cat in the Box. Next up is the game I prefer to Azul. It's just a little bit more complicated, just barely. It's called Coatl. And in this game, instead of building, either like a mosaic window, I think is Summer Pavilion, there's the Glass of Sintra. I'm botching all of these Azul names, but or building some flooring in the original Azul. In this one, you are building these Coatl dragons by drafting in a similar fashion head pieces, body pieces, and tail pieces. And you'll be building 3 of these dragons throughout the game, trying to match the patterns of these point scoring cards. There are also some other bigger temple cards that can get you some more points, but it's all about trying to complete as many of these cards as you can with your 3 dragons. Like I said, it's just a little bit more complex than Azul. Plays in about an hour for 1 to 4 players, and like I mentioned, I prefer it to Azul. I think this one is really great. Next up is kind of a classic. I have one of the newer versions, but this is Century Gollum Edition. I think Century Spice Road was the original. And this is kind of, in my opinion, like the best introduction to light deck building. I think it teaches that genre very well. You're trying to collect sets of these gems to trade them in for better gems and trade them in to kind of befriend these golems that will get you points. Once someone has 5, the game ends. But on your turn, you can take a new card into your deck, or you can play a card down that might let you convert like a blue crystal, which is more valuable, into 2 greens and a yellow. So you're trying to find cool combos with the cards that you are drafting so that when you're able to play them in succession, you're able to do some really cool crystal conversions. This game also introduces kind of the rest turn where you have to rest to pick up all of your cards so that you can then play them again. Yeah, really great game, 30 to 45 minutes. I would say probably closer to 30 usually. And like I said, just a great way to learn deck building. Century Golem Edition is it's a keeper. Really great. Next up is a two-player game, or two-player games that I really love. This one is Caper Europe. This is a very elegant, in my opinion, card drafting game where you're trying to send out the best thieves to these 3 locations on the board to win the most influence and steal paintings and treasures from those locations. And you play equipment cards on top of those thieves to try and pull more influence as a tug-of-war mechanic here in the middle to win the locations from your opponent. And you'll be playing 1 card from your hand and then trading hands with your opponent, kind of similar to Seven Wonders, except you only have 1 opponent, so you very quickly know what cards that you are giving to them each turn. Pretty quick game, plays in about half an hour, and yeah, I think it's really, really solid. This is one of my favorites. Again, I just love the small box. If the game is going to be with 2 players, generally I'm not going to get it to the table quite as much as the 3 to 4 player games that I have, and because of that, I kind of have one shelf dedicated to 2-player games, and the smaller the box is to fit there is really great. So Caper Europe, it's one of my favorites. Next up is another 2-player game I really love called Curious Cargo. This one is a lot more complex. This one is basically a puzzle game that you're playing against your opponent, and it reminds me a lot of this computer game I really loved growing up called Pipe Dream, where you were trying to make pathways with pipes to send kind of the green goo from one end of the level to the other. And this one's kind of similar. You are sending generally red and blue materials in your factory from your kind of, what are those called, machines, through these conveyor belts out to your delivery trucks. So you have to build those pathways, which can be tricky based on which cards you have. And so you might overlap them at some point or different points to change those conveyor belts. And then your trucks will get pushed forward as new trucks come in. And as your trucks leave your side, they will enter your opponent's receiving side, and you can steal your opponent's goods from them. It's not really stealing because they got points for shipping them, but if you can steal them off of the trucks as they come by this other side of your board, you get a lot of points that way too. Very tricky puzzle, and kind of a difficult game the first time you play it because of how crazy that puzzle is. And it's a little even restrictive. You don't keep the cards in your hand. You have these 2 storage spots where you can put them between turns, and then you can only play like the top ones. So if you've stacked them, the ones on the bottom can't be played until the top ones are played. So it's very tight in that way, but I think it's very fun. One of my favorite 2-player games. That's Curious Cargo. Next up is Chomp, a small game from Allplay, and this is a drafting game where you're building this tableau of cards in front of you to score the most points by placing these dinosaurs next to each other. Some of the dinosaurs might eat the other ones if they're left in a terrain next to, like the carnivores will eat the herbivores if you haven't changed that by the end of the game, and then different scoring condition cards will come out as well. So you can take like one of the scoring cards, or they will eventually flip over to the other side, which are the kind of the tile sides that you'll place on your tableau. It's a fun game. It's quite a bit trickier than something like King Domino, which it reminds me of. But it's fun. I like it probably a little better just because there's a bit more depth there. Again, small box, love it. That is Chomp. Next is probably my favorite two-player game ever, but I don't really consider it a board game. I consider it more of a dexterity or a bar game, and that is Crokinole. I didn't bring the whole board out, just a couple sets of discs. And just really briefly, Crokinole is a flicking game where you're trying to kind of control this big round board from your opponent and score a lot of points by getting your pieces near the middle. Mixes a few different other games. I don't know if it was inspired by or if it inspired games like Shuffleboard, and it kind of has bocce and curling feel as well, even though it's just a table-sized game as opposed to a shuffleboard. Is it shuttle or shuffle board? I'm not sure. Those are 9 feet long, and obviously curling takes an entire gymnasium. So I think Crokinole is amazing, and the skill ceiling is very high. So there's a lot to learn and improve on. Very fun. Love Crokinole. Next up is my son's favorite game, and I think it's a keeper as well. Really good co-op game, especially for teaching kids a little bit about dice rolling and kind of light co-op gaming. That is Chronicles of Avel, and this is one I've played a couple of times with my 7-year-old. We actually played with my 5-year-old once as well. You make your own character, and that's done by you drawing them. Well, it has kind of a base drawn, but you can color and give them any, features and flair that you want on a piece of paper. And then a piece of paper slides in the top of your board. And then you keep track of your player's health and their name and everything they're carrying in their backpack here. Very easy to manage, because if something can fit in the backpack, you can keep it. If you can't get it to fit in that slot, then you can't keep it. And you're just trying to protect your castle from these monsters that are coming in kind of waves, and then defeating the big bad monster at the end. It's a fun time. Like I said, my 7-year-old really loves it. He likes it so much that we just got this expansion for it that has a bunch of new content and new monsters. Haven't opened this one quite yet, but I'll be doing an unboxing for it on the channel soon. So that is Chronicles of Avel. Okay, a few more here. Next up is one of my favorite worker placement games. This is Cryo, from probably my favorite worker placement designer, Luke Laurie. And in this game, your ship has crash landed on this hostile planet that is freezing, and so you have to save as many of your people in cryosleep as you can by sending your drones out onto the board and then sending those people in cryosleep down into the cave system so that they don't freeze. And so there's area majority scoring in those caves down in the system, or down underneath the ground, and then worker placement with your drones. But then when you do your recall turn and pull all 3 of your drones back, you get to choose where you slot them back, and you get to activate the 3 columns that you bring them back to, which might let you get something or convert something into something else. So you're building out your own personalized board. The cards in the game can be used for 4 different things. They can be scrapped for some resource, slotted in the bottom as a vehicle, slotted in the side as like an end game objective, or slotted in the top as something else. So the multi-use cards here are really cool as well. This is a great one. Really, really awesome worker placement and area majority game that doesn't outstay its welcome either. 60 to 90 minutes, I think, is what it says on the box, and that's just about right. So that is Cryo there. Next up is one that I don't think a lot of people have loved, but I think that was just due to expectations going into the game, and that was Cloud Age. This is a game by Alexander Pfister, who has done really heavy games like Maracaibo and Great Western Trail, I believe, and this one is quite a bit lighter than that. I think it's really good, though. A really solid game. It has a cool theme of kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario where you're flying around trying to save and protect some cities from raiders, and then start some new growth in the ground from your airship that you're flying. So you have your own airship board, and you'll be putting cards down here as kind of building up some little engine down there. You can upgrade your airship as well so that you can move farther along the wasteland, or have better odds to defeat the raiders and things like that. But kind of one of the coolest parts of this game is, I think, the gameplay kind of fits the theme pretty well. As you pull up to a city, eventually in part of the round, you get to play your piece on this center area that has 3 different cards here that are in sleeves, and the sleeves have clouds printed on them, as if you're in your airship looking down at this city trying to decide, am I going to stop here? Do they have something that would be beneficial for me? Is there a lot of water, or what another resource that I might have or might need? And you can see some details past the clouds to maybe get an idea of it, but you can't see everything, and you don't know the value of those potential resources. So you kind of have to make a halfway blind decision from those. And I think that's a really fun feeling there. And during that section of the game, everyone is taking their turns kind of together. So someone will say, yeah, we're going to go here, and then the next player gets to also go there and choose a different resource. So there's not a lot of downtime in the game either. I think this one's really solid. It's not, I would say it's like a really solid 8, in my opinion. It's not like incredible or amazing. I don't think I'd play it more than a few times a year. But it has even some scenarios that you can run through with additional cards that get added in. And yeah, I think it feels good from start to finish, and I really like that mechanism of everyone taking their turns at the same time and looking down through those card sleeves through the clouds. So that is Cloud Age there. And then last up for my video on my games that start with the letter C is Caesar's Empire. And the only thing I don't like about this game is I wish the box was smaller, because I think it could have been. And then I think it would have been an even easier game to travel with and to get to the table, because this game is awesome and it plays in such a short time. Once you know what you're doing, you can probably play it in 20-25 minutes, but there's a lot of game in here. Basically, you are trying to build routes from Rome out to all of these different cities, but you get to decide kind of what you're going to focus on. Am I going to focus on getting these resources so that I can get set collection points? But then on every turn when you place a troop out, you get to you track the shortest route back to Rome, and every piece along that path gets a point. So if you're able to build some really long pathways, you might have turns where you're getting, 8, 9, 10 points because you've traced a pathway back to Rome that only goes through your pieces. So there's a push and pull with, do I make some really long trails or pathways back to Rome, or do I focus on getting these bonuses by visiting certain cities? This game is really awesome. It says 30 to 60 minutes on the box, but I really think 20 to 40 minutes would be a more accurate range. And there's a lot of good decisions, and I think more strategy kind of unfolds the more times you play it. You'll start to understand when you need to block somebody or create a little branch off from their long pathway so that they can't just milk the same path for lots of points on every turn. So lots of kind of layers to this one. Caesar's Empire is really great. All right, that was all of the games that I have currently that start with the letter C. What is your favorite game that starts with the letter C? Make sure to let me know. Let me know if you played any of the ones that I talked about here. That was a lot of games. This is definitely the longest video. I've only done 3 so far, but make sure to check out the rest of the content I have here on Gaming Top Down and join our monthly giveaway. It's almost the end of the month, so it's about to end before the new one starts in July. So make sure to join that, and I will see you on the next one where we talk about my games that start with the letter D. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.